you for joining us. Today's presentation will focus on social emotional development opportunities here at SIG. At the end of the presentation, we will provide you with the opportunity to ask questions. In addition, we will be recording this presentation and will email it to you shortly thereafter. My name is Kate Kosser, and I am SIG's Director of Operations.
And I'm Maxlyn Pierre, SIG's Operation Coordinator and Executive Assistant. Thanks for joining us today to have a conversation about gifted children and their social and emotional needs.
When we consider gifted students, we undoubtedly talk about how important passion is to creative thinking and production. You're just not going to make much progress on a project you don't feel strongly about, and especially when you hit an obstacle. And if you're moving into new and uncharted territory in a line of thought or experimentation, you're likely going to hit an obstacle or two, or even three. Because so much of creativity requires an emotional connection with the purpose you have for thinking about it in the first place, or the challenge of being stuck once you hit a roadblock, or the drive you have to create something original, it makes sense that we feel so strongly about nurturing the social and emotional aspects of gifted and creative children's development during our program.
When we think about gifted students, we tend to focus on academics, that is, providing a strong academic foundation to satisfy a student's intellectual curiosity. In considering fostering a student's creativity or passion and ultimate future successes, we must pay attention to the social-emotional component. In other words, how gifted students interact with others and develop meaningful, lasting, and influential relationships. The challenge among gifted students is while they are academically advanced beyond their years, they consequently have a hard time fitting in with others their age. Has your child ever seemed out of touch with peers, like she can never relate to them, or maybe there's a constant feeling that no one wants to be their friend? Your gifted child might even consider they are not normal, or in turn not accepted by others. Our gifted students are bright, yes, but their ability to live a fulfilled life must depend more than just on their learning alone.
So let's explore why making friends for a gifted child is much more difficult than, let's say, your average Joe. Typically, where does a school-age child meet friends? Well, most of the time at school. So now let's consider the fact that schools often accelerate a gifted student, let's say a sixth grader, into a higher grade level to meet her intellectual demands. And in this case, our example is into the 10th grade. While this acceleration certainly challenges the student academically, the student may feel isolated and without a social network, since the 15-year-olds in the class may not want to socialize with a 12-year-old. In the same way, the 12-year-old may not have the maturity level of a 15-year-old. We must keep in mind that there is a disconnect between intellectual growth and social emotional growth development. Grouping gifted students with older kids doesn't make them older, and it certainly doesn't foster the social relationships we're looking for.
Research on the effects of positive social-emotional growth and development dates back hundreds of years. We can even consider philosophers or sociologists of the 1900s, like Emile Durkheim, who reasoned that human interaction makes human beings happy. People need other people to thrive. Without social connections, the negative impact of isolation on gifted students is quite severe. Gifted students who lack the opportunity to interact with peers experience a greater degree of depression, and they statistically fail to achieve or reach their full academic potential. Gifted students who are without a social circle have been found to be emotionally crippled and can retreat both socially and academically. So while we want to satisfy the students' intellectual curiosities, we must also focus on social-emotional growth as a complementary factor in a student's overall success, both in and out of the classroom. The high academic potential that our gifted students possess can be quelled by a lack of social and emotional interaction.
What we need to do to help foster social emotional connections is to provide opportunities for students of the same age who share the same academic passion and thirst for knowledge to come together. And at SIG, that's exactly what we do.
Fact: gifted students need to be challenged constantly to engage with others. They need to find their age group peers interesting. When students attend SIG, they can expect to meet other gifted students their own age from around the world who bring different experiences, passions, and beliefs. At SIG, we nurture social emotional growth by enabling students to develop connections with their peers so they can learn and grow from each other. Students are assigned to a counselor group made up of about 15 to 18 students of the same gender and the same age, who are supervised by counselors who encourage friendships through engaging and meaningful connections.
Fact: gifted students need to be doing things they love and explore topics, activities, and passions that interest them most. They will aggregate to those just like them. So giving kids time and opportunity to explore and play around in broad and interesting topics, like we do here at SIG, is a great way to feed any passions they have as they gain knowledge they didn't previously have, which then fuels questions and answers for further thought and application. At SIG, students choose up to 4 classes a day, each an hour and a half long, in subject areas that interest them. There are no prerequisites, as we encourage students to challenge their interests in subjects that range from microbiology to dance. Without dictating course selection, students discover what appeals to them most, and along the way, find others who share the same interests.
Fact: gifted students have a high standard for their friendships and place a greater emphasis on real and authentic relationships. At SIG, students are encouraged to be themselves. Gifted students need to be understood and to understand who they are. Our goal is to provide opportunities for these kinds of experiences to occur while on campus. Just being with like-minded peers provides great opportunity to be comfortable with being yourself and to accept and be accepted. We offer a robust evening activity program at SIG to take the passion for learning outside of the classroom. In the evenings, we offer activities such as Brain Bowl, a SIG sing-off, and movie night as avenues for students to get to know one another, find new outlets of interest, or just to have fun. On the weekends, we travel with the students off-site to venues like museums or cultural centers. SIG's activity program shows our students that learning extends outside the classroom walls and helps our students to experience new adventures surrounded by like-minded individuals.
So here you can see a list of exciting activities that we've offered at SIG in the past, and some of our staples are included here, like Brain Bowl, like our counselor activities night, but you can see we have something like Mystery Night or You Choose. The Trash and Show is also great fun where the students come together and dress up in different objects and clothes that they find around their dorm room. Of course, the dance is always a highlight of the summer. So this is just a sampling of the different activities that we offer. It does vary by campus, but as you can see, every activity is geared towards the group and certainly improving social emotional connections.
We've reached
So before we turn over to questions, you may be asking, moving forward, what can we do? What can I do for my gifted child? Well, first and foremost, go at their own pace. So let your gifted student survey the land and determine his or her own course for acceptance. Gifted students thrive from self-motivation. So your gifted child is really less concerned with pleasing others and should be encouraged to foster his or her own self-worth. What makes him or her proud of themselves? And a circle of friends will naturally follow from that. Gifted students need to be with intellectual peers. So just like we do at the SIG program, we bring students together from all over the world to share in common ideas as they challenge each other to think further, engage more deeply, and to be the voice of change together.
We've now reached the question portion of our webinar. Please share your questions or concerns by typing them into the chat box of your screen. We will address as many questions as possible. We also have Dr. Swicord here for this portion to provide her insight. Okay, our question relates to the student perspective. So we often get a question of, why do people think it's a negative thing that I am quiet? We hear that from teachers. We often hear teachers talk about students being quiet in their classrooms and being shy, or some other characteristic attributed to introverts that they seem to want to change or feel, if changed, would mean the students have achieved some measure of success. Being an introvert is not a bad thing. It's not something we as educators should be trying to correct. In fact, introversion is associated with many powerful characteristics that we should be encouraging. These students are good listeners, they're self-sufficient, super focused, easy to please, observant, and they're really good at studying. They're trustworthy, and they're in touch with their emotions, and that's thought-provoking as well. These traits are incredibly important to the kinds of challenging and authentic learning that gifted students crave and that we differentiate for them.
So we have another question. How can my child be so immature but function academically multiple years ahead? Well, this is what we would call an asynchronous type of behavior, and it's very common in gifted students. So really, we can't expect someone who's intellectually advanced, well beyond his years, to just automatically race through years of maturing at the same rate, right? So it's easy to be baffled by the fact that you're talking to someone about adult topics and you forget that you're actually speaking with a child. So sometimes we can get thrown off by these kinds of experiences and even question that. But it's really important to remember that a child is a child first. And not all gifted children look or act alike. So really, we need to expect and be prepared for a wide range of differences in emotional development and in intellectual and academic performance.
Hi, this is Barbara Swicord. I appreciate the opportunity to participate in this great conversation. We have a question. What kinds of adaptations, we just lost it off the screen. What kinds of adaptation happens within the SIG classrooms depending on the personalities and strengths and weaknesses of a given set of students? And can we provide some examples? We have multiple layers of adaptation that are going on in the SIG classrooms. It starts with having a very flexible curriculum where we present broad concepts and big issues and then allow our students to pick and choose their interests within those broad topics. So we are very adaptable to their own learning interests and needs. We also allow and encourage different kinds of products and processes for the students to use. So if they have a propensity to work in one medium or in a certain manner, they can certainly do that. They just have to plan how they're going to come up with how they're going to use the new information at the end of the course. So we really do rely on them using their strengths. We don't really focus on weaknesses because we believe that students will be using their strengths in their future careers. We do appreciate it when parents give us some information ahead of time, or when educators do, as to how the students like to learn, and if they have any special accommodations made in their classrooms already, then that helps us be ahead of the game, and then we can just carry on from the information that we've received. The next question is, if you have a child that teachers and other educators view as gifted, but your child does not test well because of anxiety and thus does not qualify for gifted programs outside the school district, what suggestions do we have? It's not uncommon for students to not test well because they have test anxiety. And there are many ways that we get around that here at SIG. We encourage other types of assessment. We particularly are trying to find highly creative students, so we look for other ways for students to come into our program. We look at behaviors as much as any kind of testing assessment. So we encourage teachers and parents to use characteristic checklists that we provide and their recommendations and any anecdotal information that they can provide. So we really do think it's important to capitalize on the behaviors of students and not just the test scores that they can qualify for within their school district. So I hope that that's helpful. This is a great question related to today's topic. My daughter is already in the gifted school in a class of same-age students, but still is not forming friendships. What can I do to help her learn how to form friendships? Well, you mentioned that she's in a class of same-age students, so it may be that she would have more interests, more common interests with students of older ages. There may be ways to interact with older students within her school setting, or it may be that you'll need to look for ways outside of school to form friendships. You can look at clubs, you can look at interest groups in the community. You can have her start her own interest group and invite anyone who's interested to come along. And sometimes they just need help with ways to make friends of any age, just sometimes development of social skills. How do you introduce conversations with people? How do you find commonalities with people? So there just might be some social skills training needed to go as well. It's an interesting question. How many friendships are normal for a first grade girl? I don't think there's a normal or abnormal number. I think it is more important to gifted students usually to have meaningful relationships, which probably means a smaller number of relationships. So even if there's one best friend, I think that your first grade child is going to be very happy with that relationship. So I think for gifted students, it's definitely not how many friends you have, but the quality of that friendship that are so important. What should normal friendships look like? Well, they should be friendly. Two kids should show respect for each other. They should want to have similar interests and activities so they can do things together that they both enjoy. And, just befriend and protect each other and not engage in negative behaviors like gossip or bullying or things like that. bring to a problem or to content, and that's the kind of behavior that they'll need to carry with them throughout their lives. So the instructors are trained to encourage that kind of behavior, and then when appropriate, when they need to problem solve in groups or work together to create a solution or a product, then they do encourage the collaboration as well. There's a question about how do we help lead children with higher intelligence and lower emotional feedback in their daily lives. And I think the first step is have conversation. It's to open the dialogue between the adult and the child to get a feel for how they're feeling about things, where they feel like their life is lacking, where they're happy with it. Talk about emotions, share emotions, encourage emotions, because by feeling emotions is the way for them to be more in contact with themselves and to understand how they're feeling about their lives, whether they feel good about it or wish things were better, and to share that, to not keep that information in. Next question is, how do we help students from countries other than the United States adapt and blend in? Diversity is really, really important in our program. We cherish it and we encourage it. So we have a very open attitude about encouraging other cultures to share what they bring to our programs, as well as for our students to share with the other countries. So we have a lot of conceptual classes that deal with big issues that are global issues that encourage and in fact demand a global conversation about how people feel about things from your own origin, because sometimes a perspective from another country really opens up the eyes of our conversations here in this country. So we do encourage it and just love to have students from as many other countries as possible. This next question, is it common for parents of younger gifted students to worry about your young child who wants to socialize with older students, want to be there to guide conversations to protect your child? Of course, it depends on the age, how young and how old. Certainly, I think all parents are concerned about their children's socialization, and you do want to be aware of the social relationships that your children of all ages have with other children. And you do want to have conversations about the interactions. How are things going? How do you feel about someone? How are they treating you? How are you managing the relationship? What is satisfying? What is not satisfying? And just, again, keep the conversation open and make sure that they're having healthy relationships no matter what the ages of the children are. The next question is, my child is in the gifted program at school. He's 12 in the 7th grade. I feel like we haven't been able to get him into the right programs due to our financial situation. What can you do to help him? Well, this is certainly a common problem, but all situations that we provide for our children don't have to cost money. There are a lot of things that we can do on our own. I mean, just starting right in the home with the types of questions that we ask, the types of activities we engage in, the fact that we're doing things together, that you're making outings, you're going to places such as museums, parks, events, having different groups get together who share interests, and looking for free activities in the community, going online to find things that might be happening, going online to get research and information you can talk about together. So I think it's, again, good to have a conversation with your 7th grader and see where he may feel like he's missed out, or areas that he's interested in that you haven't pursued yet with him, and just get started on the right track in that way. Next question is about our program. The Innovators program at SIG is for age groups 13 and above. Will the younger students, beginners, find the program hard? Well, the Innovators program actually refers to all the programs that are at residential sites. So they actually do start at age 9 at some campuses and start at age 13 at others. So the younger students will be in programs for their age. So if you're 9 and 10 at an Innovators program, you'll be with other 9 and 10-year-olds. So no matter what your age, the program provided is appropriate for the age of that group. That's a great question. The parent says, I encourage my son of 14 years independence and doing things on his own whenever possible. However, when I ask him for some help sometimes, he asks me that we said that people should do things on their own whenever possible. Is that applying to us, and what can you do about it? Yes, we do, of course, encourage students to be independent, particularly for gifted students. It's important that they start to think independently, work and act independently at a young age, because eventually we hope and expect that they will be independent thinkers, creating new knowledge, pursuing new frontiers in all different fields. So we do encourage independence, and actually that's one of the things that our alumni tell us they most value about SIG is the independence that they gained while they were with us. It's a very self-affirming characteristics to have, to know that you can function on your own if you need to. And also it's important for us, for students, to know that there are times that they need to collaborate and work with other people, because the problems and issues that we face in this world are so huge that you're going to need to work with others. You're going to need their input, you're going to need their vantage points, you're going to need their perspective, and you're going to need their abilities. So both of those things are independent, but definitely at a very young age, we do ask our students to think independently.
Are there any other questions that we can answer?
If you think of a question later, if you feel like your question wasn't answered sufficiently, and it may be that in these chat boxes we misunderstand what you really are trying to ask, please feel free to contact us independently after the broadcast, and we're happy to help you. There are a lot of good books out there to help in the social emotional area. You can go to any of the vendors that sell books for gifted students and their parents, and there are really some very good authors out there writing some very helpful information. So it's certainly not difficult to find things to help you.
Okay, well, that is all the time that we have for today. And again, if you do have any questions or any thoughts that come to you after this presentation, just feel free to reach out via phone or by email. And you can also find more information on our website at giftedstudy.org. And certainly don't forget to connect with us on social media.
We hope this webinar provided you with a comprehensive overview of the social emotional opportunities at SIG. We would like to thank you all for your wonderful questions and for taking the time to join us today. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.